Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Thank you for spending your time with me this morning. So we're here today to do a training on how to use technology responsibly. So whenever you hear the phrase using technology responsibly, people I know how to use technology. Come on, everybody does. I use technology every day. But ultimately, it's about understanding the things that you're doing with your technology and also taking steps to make sure that you're not compromised knowingly or unknowingly. So just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Jerry Arulandu. I've been a cybersecurity consultant and trainer for the last 15 to 20 years. I focus more on cybersecurity, but I've got also background in networking and infrastructure consulting. I've worked on technologies like Microsoft, Palo Alto, Netscope, and things like that. So these are enterprise-grade cybersecurity technologies which are used primarily in offices and all that. So you might not be familiar with the names as an everyday consumer, but if you're working in a big company, you will come across these technologies. But the point is, the underlying technology used by these different vendors is the same thing as you would use on your laptop or your phone. So we'll touch a bit on that as well. So as I said, about 15 years working in cybersecurity roles across the globe. So I'm born and raised in Malaysia. Worked in New Zealand for a couple of years. Well, studied in Malaysia as well. Worked here for a few years, then went to New Zealand for a couple of years, and then moved to the UK to watch football and travel Europe. Ended up being there for 10 years. Came back, spent a year in Spain before coming back, and then spent a few years in Singapore before coming back to Malaysia. So I've delivered training and keynotes in all those regions, but the organizations that I've worked for, I think, are quite well established. My point that I'm trying to establish here is that I'm quite familiar with technology, I'm quite comfortable with talking about cybersecurity, and I hope that I can relate to you guys quite easily. So, a quick run through the agenda for today. So we'll start with module 1, which is what is security compliance. So it's probably a phrase that you're familiar with, but we'll break it down to what are the components of a security compliance program. So it defines what needs to be protected. It also tells you what are the rules to follow to fulfill these compliance requirements. We'll also talk a bit about why that's important. Module 2, which is where we'll spend a lot of our time this morning, is about social engineering attacks. Again, it might be a phrase that you're familiar with, that you've heard before, but what we will go through is what are the goals of a social engineering attack? What's the psychology behind a social engineering attack? What happens before? What happens during? What happens after? Then ultimately, we also go through some points on how do you defend yourself against social engineering attacks? How do you identify that maybe you are being targeted for a social engineering attack? Then we'll have a break for lunch for about an hour. After lunch, we'll come back, we'll have a little energizer to get us re-energized before we go into module 3, which is talking about securing your devices. Now, we all live off our phone today, right? We can't live without our phone. But it's such a tiny device, but it's the most powerful device that you could have. More so than what you would be using, than your laptops that you would be using for supposedly work purposes. Knowingly or unknowingly, a lot of people do more work on their phones today than on their actual laptop, right? So, securing those devices or your physical devices, it falls down to the physical security of it, the actual hardware of the device, and then there's also the digital security of your devices. How do you ensure that your digital persona is secure, that your digital information on your device is also secure? Finally, we go to module 4, which is, I suppose, a hot topic of what's happening today. Right? I wanted to touch a bit on generative AI. I'm pretty sure most people are using generative AI in some form or the other. The technology has grown exponentially over the last couple of years. So we won't dwell too deep into it, but I'd like to touch on some basics of what happens when you're prompting in AI. How does that work in the background? How does that affect the data that you have, the data that you are using, the data that you're inputting into the prompt? And then the other one is the more, which is a hot topic in the AI industry, ethical use of AI, because the definition of ethical use is very different for everybody, right? So some frameworks need to be put together. So we'll touch a bit on what kind of frameworks are being put together out there, what countries are in the forefront, maybe a little bit of what we're doing in Malaysia as well. And then that will take us to about 4:30, where I'll hopefully be able to do some closing summary and have a quick. There'll be a quiz at the end of the class, not to scare you off, but it should be. It's more of a refresher to remind you of what we've gone through for the whole day. So that was a quick agenda for what we're doing today. Has anybody got any questions on? No? Good. Okay, cool. Now, before we start, let's do a quick icebreaker. So just to get to know each other, I mean, you all know me, I've introduced myself. If we could, when we go around, I'd like you to just introduce yourself, the name, maybe how long you think you've been using technology, right? Just a way, it doesn't need to be a very specific number, just roughly, since primary school, since secondary school, since university, things like that. And then more importantly, this is what we're going to do. 2 lies and a deep fake. It's a bit of a tech twist on 2 truths and a lie. So it's truth, lies and deep fakes. So how do you play? So each person, I want you to come up with 3 facts or 2 facts and a deep fake, right? So the facts should be technology related. For example, I still use my first ever email address from 2005, or I once accidentally replied all to a company-wide email. However, one must be a deep fake. An example of a deep fake, I would say, is like, I once did internet banking using my friend's phone and never logged out. Right? That's something that's possibly done, but maybe that's something you did 7-8 years ago, which wasn't something that you thought about, this could be risky. I think today everybody knows that's something silly to do, right? You need to log out. So yeah, something along those lines, and try to make it believable. So the idea is to see if the other person can guess which one is your deep fake. So maybe we'll take about 3 minutes for us to do this, and then we'll start with just introducing yourselves, and then coming up with the 2 lies, 2 truths and a deep fake. I knew I was forgetting something, so let me give you a piece of paper where you can write down your truths and deep fakes. Here you go. There's no prize, yeah, so don't crack your head too much on what lie or what truth to think about. 30 more seconds.
30 seconds by now.
There's one more point.
So it could be like, I accidentally forwarded a photo I shouldn't to the wrong person. What kind of photo that could be. I suppose now with social media and things like that, I posted something which got commented on by a celebrity, or a celebrity replied to me. So I'm just giving you guys ideas on what could be a truth or could be a deep fake, who knows? Right. 10, 9, 8. Okay, I see all pens are down. That's good. I don't need to go down. Okay, seeing as he's outnumbered, we'll start with gentlemen first.
Okay.
So just to recap, just an introduction of your name, how long you've been using technology, or how long you've been using phones, or etc. And your two truths and your deep fake.
Chair, good morning everyone. My name is Arulandu. I've started using the technologies, the phone, since way too long. 1999.
Oh wow.
1999.
Nokia phone.
Yeah. That will bring me to the next point of this. So that was my first smartphone. The Nokia, the one that you can open like mini laptop.
Correct.
I can't remember what
Model.
model was that. Okay.
I only remember that when they stopped the flip one, the 3210 was
That's
the one.
smaller.
without-
The one is big. It's
Yeah,
like
I
mini.
know.
Yeah, the one. So that was my first smartphone, Nokia with screen and keyboard. That's point number one.
Oh, so that's your first point, okay?
Yeah. Point number two, I enjoy composing songs using Suno very much. Okay. And then point number three, I only have one account with Google.
So right, so first one is your first phone, or you've been using phones.
First, okay, I mean start using phones then.
Or your first phone was a Nokia
Yes.
flip phone
Correct.
with a keyboard.
Yes. That's
Second one, you
Second
compose
one,
songs using
Suno.
Suno.
Yeah.
And third one, you only have one Google account.
Google account, yeah.
Oof. What's the
Make it
consensus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay, so three of us.
Okay.
So we'll go with unless each of us gets one, then.
I'm thinking the only one account is not
Real
real,
account.
but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's the one Google account.
Yeah.
I think that also.
Oh yeah, that's right. Very good.
Is it
Thank you.
possible?
Thank you, Kiran.
Before you forgot the password, right?
Yeah.
You have to create one
You need to
Google
create
account. Okay.
Well done, well done. Alright,
Okay.
next, here we go.
So, my name is Shameen. Okay, so, to truth one lie, so I don't allow anyone, including my family members, to put Gwen is my daughter, picture in generative AI. So, no
Okay.
pictures, none of those.
Mhm.
Okay? All my passwords are on Apple Keychain, so I don't remember any passwords. Okay? And my family members know the passcodes to my devices, like my phone and all.
Alright.
So, daughter's picture not allowed to be on generative AI specifically or on the internet?
Generative AI.
Generative AI.
I have given up on the
Social
posting.
media.
Yeah, you cannot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second one was Apple keychain for all your passwords. And third one is family members don't know your
What's
password.
Apple Keychain?
The one where you can save, they ask you to save your
So
password
it's,
so that it auto saves.
Actually, we touched on that in securing our devices.
We'll go
So
to that.
basically, you don't need to remember your password, but it stores a key within. It's like a password manager.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Centralized.
Yeah.
There's also a Google version of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so okay.
I'm feeling, what are you feeling?
I'll go for number 3.
I feel like it's number 2. What do you think?
I think it's number 2 because unless you're fully on Apple, it becomes a bit.
Apple,
Okay.
Apple.
Yeah, but still, yeah.
Yeah, the answer is number 2, not all. Some,
Yes, correct.
most, but not all. Yeah.
Okay.
Great. And the reason I guess because I can relate to that. I'm also mostly Apple devices, but at some point I'm like, oh no, I need to log in
Certain
here.
passwords, yeah.
And if you're not using your Apple device,
Habis.
then you're screwed.
But what was number 3 again?
My family members know the passwords to my devices. Yeah, some of them do, yeah.
Alright.
Okay, and finally,
Okay. Hey, hi everyone, my name is Dina, and I think when I started using technology, the clearest memory I have is like maybe being around 9, 10 years old and getting the dial-up internet at home. And I feel like that's very clear. So primary school days using the old internet. And then two truths and a lie. Okay. First one is I have multiple email addresses that I separate based on category. So depending on what I'm using it for, I'll sign up using the particular email address. Second one is I had to do an emergency transfer. One time when my phone was dead and I had to use the computer at a public library. And then the last one is I posted my rent transfer slip a few years ago and I transferred rent to my landlord. Accidentally to my WhatsApp story and my friend told me that I had to pick it up.
So first one again was
First one was I have multiple email addresses that I use
Based
for
on
different
categories.
based on
It's like
category.
opposite of my Google.
Yeah. Second one is I had to do an emergency bank transfer once when my phone was dead and I had to use a public library computer. And the third one is one time after paying my rent, I posted the rent transfer slip on my WhatsApp story.
I will go with second one is a lie.
Okay.
The bank transfer. I mean, I wanted to ask more question, but then that's not the game.
I think the third one
Okay.
is the lie.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the third one.
Third one.
Yeah.
You're right. It's the second one. Embarrassingly, I accidentally posted the rent transfer slip.
Ah.
My friend is like, did you mean to post that on your WhatsApp story? I'm like, no.
Because the only reason I thought the second one was because in this day and age, one, finding a public library is a challenge.
Yeah.
And then to go in and to log in and all that, I think we are a bit more savvy than that. And also, I also thought of that because I think that was like the example I gave also, right?
I was talking about university, I should clarify university days, but yes, no. Yeah.
Okay, great. So thanks everybody.
You were saying first time you used tech, she forgot to.
Oh yeah. But I guess if you count PlayStation, the very first PlayStation, my dad used to have one. So
Right.
I use it or play. But if it's like internet, then it's going to my dad's office and using the computer there because they have like bring your children to work with. And using the computer there. Yeah.
Like yeah, and I still remember the sound of the dialogue.
Yeah, the dialogue sound is iconic.
That's a long time ago. Okay, great. So at least now we have an understanding of what. Actually, sorry, what I wanted to touch. So everybody understands what a deep fake is, right? So it's actually a technical term, and later also when we talk about when we're in the module about social engineering, we dwell a bit deeper into deep fake. So yes, so thank you all for that. Great to understand more how you use technology and how you accidentally use technology as well. In fact, that story about accidentally posting photos and stories, I think that happens way, way too often.
Yeah.
People try to do it so quickly nowadays. Okay, before we go on to the first module, I just wanted to go through our expected learning outcomes for today. So first, ultimately, by the end of today, I want everybody to be able to identify what social engineering attack methods are. When you see something that looks a bit suspicious, what about it that is causing the suspicion? Things like the tone of the message, maybe the domains that is being used for the link that you're being asked to click on, and also there are other criteria that we will touch on later, which should trigger your spidey senses to say, hey, something is wrong, right? I need to be extra careful. Secondly, hopefully by the end of the day, you'll understand what needs to be on your devices and what kind of practices you have to practice to ensure that that most powerful device that usually ends up being the least secure is minimally secure. And And as we went through the agenda earlier, there's two components to that. There's the physical side of it and then there's the digital side of it. Having one and not having the other is not sufficient, especially today. And finally, talking about generative AI, we're using AI tools, understanding what we're doing on the tool, understanding what happens to the information that we put into AI, and also based on that, learning how to do things tactfully, carefully, ultimately securely, and being responsible with the usage. Okay. Any questions so far? Cool. Please feel free to interrupt me during the session. Don't feel shy. I'll try to answer to the best of my abilities. Right. So back to using technology responsibly, which is the topic of our entire presentation, right? So the idea is by the end of this session, this evening, there are two principles I want you to go home with, right? Follow compliance requirements. So, and compliance sounds like a big word, but when you break it down, rules and regulations and best practices, all this fall under compliance. And sometimes people think, oh, it's just too much. Yes, it can be too much, but if you understand why it's being, not say implemented, why it's being pushed to you in different contexts, right? So if you're being pushed compliances as part of an organization, you need to understand why the organization is doing it, and even if it's not practical for you to follow every single compliance that they have, you have an understanding of the intention behind the compliance, right? And then you can take your own steps and be responsible about it and do that. Next is, by the end of the day, using technology safely. So you learn the rules and regulations and the policies that need to be followed and have an understanding of why those are in place. And ultimately, when you're using technology, and this is talking about your devices, AI tools, softwares, having that second thought when something looks suspicious rather than, no, this is just somebody made a mistake and just click on something. So taking an extra step to make sure that what you're doing does not have consequences. And hopefully by going through the different modules today, you'll have an understanding of what to look out for and be more alert to avoid being compromised. Ultimately, people, we like to think we are all generally good intentioned people, right? So even from a corporate perspective, 90% of breaches, 90% of attacks and all that don't happen intentionally. It's the unintentional exposure of data, unintentional installation of ransomware file. This is where things happen. Okay, great. And then, so now we've gone through the agenda, we've gone through our learning outcomes, we've had a little icebreaker to introduce ourselves to each other. Let's go into our first module, which is security compliance. Now, as I said earlier, compliance sounds like a very big word, right? So it depending on the organization or the entity that's implementing it, there are different words on how compliance is. So you have things like guidelines, frameworks, policies, etc. But first, let's talk about the role, what security compliance actually means in the next slide. And then we have the role of security policies, things like password policies and acceptable use policies. But this is usually more commonly abbreviated as AUP. So a lot of people, you see AUP, and you think what is AUP? It's actually just an acronym or an abbreviation for acceptable use policies. And then we'll also touch a bit on the types of data that we are legally required to protect, because one, if you don't know what type of data that you have, you don't know the responsibilities that you have towards the data. And finally, we also talk about how we can put in processes in the right way to do incident reporting. What to do when something goes wrong, because any cybersecurity consultant worth his salt will tell you, it's not if you are going to get attacked, right? It's ultimately when you're going to get attacked. Whether that's a small attack or a big attack, it's a different story. In today's day and age, everybody is susceptible. But what do you do when you get attacked, and how do you get back to the situation you were before you were attacked? Because sometimes there's nothing you can do about it, but in order for your day-to-day life to go on, for your company's day-to-day operations to go on, you need to get back to the situation it was before the attack. And just bite the bullet and accept it. Alright, so security compliance. The definition is the adherence to rules, regulations, or practices that are related to the protection of assets and are established by a specific authority, like I mentioned earlier. So what do you think is the two, actually it's kind of a giveaway, right? I was going to ask you what are the two most important components of this. It's the assets and the authorities, right? So when we talk about assets, typically people think of assets as physical devices, your computers, your hardware, the software on your computer as well, which is not a physical device, but your phone, the physical server, your tables, your file cabinets. So again, this is a generic definition of what security compliance is. We're not talking specifically to technological requirements only, right? So it's all the physical assets that we have. But it also covers things like buildings and people, right? So buildings, office spaces, data centers, etc., walls, people, the staff especially, right? But just to expand a little bit on people, why are people considered key assets? Because it's not only the security or the health of the physical person, it's the knowledge that the person has. The information or copyright information that might be attached to them. And
Just outside.
oh, yes, come in.
Hey, Dad. Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I just got a walk.
It's all right. Have a seat.
Thank you.
You just missed our icebreakers, but you'll have to introduce yourself to everybody else during the break. Okay. So the people element sometimes gets overlooked as just making sure that the physical aspect of the person is secure. You've got to also consider things like the access that they have to some of your resources and services, and also the knowledge that they carry with them. And so who defines what this compliance should be? That's where we look at a specific authority. So when you have an organization, so that's your office that builds the security compliance policy. And then industry, we talk about, for example, the medical industry. Globally, there is a standard called HIPAA, where they've got to ensure that personal identifiable information specific to medical records, etc., have a separate. Okay, next we'll look at what are the protected data types that we should be concerned about. So, as I mentioned earlier, different organizations or entities, they come up with compliance requirements for protection of certain types of data. So these are the protected data types. Ultimately, PII covers the broad umbrella of all the data types, and there are subsets of data types that fall under the umbrella of PII that different industries will have regulations or frame or guidelines or compliance requirements. Yes?
What's PII stand for?
So, personally identifiable data. Actually, I wanted to pretend you didn't see that. So I want you to give me examples of personally identifiable data. So it's essentially information that can be used to identify a specific person.
I see. Passport.
Passport is one, okay.
Yeah, identity card, passport.
Okay.
Yeah, address.
Right. Since the list has come up, I'll go through this and explain it a little bit. So, full name, obvious. IC number, also quite obvious, right? That's identifiable to each person. Passport number as well. And address, date of birth. You might say, well, address, there's 5 people living in this house, so how is that a personally identifiable data? But if I had a combination of your address and your name, or your address and your IC number, right? Then I can narrow it down to one specific person in the address. So all this are what's generally recognized as personally identifiable information. So it's PII data. Even in the Malaysian context, all this falls under personally identifiable information. Under the Cybersecurity Act, there is actually a law now that says organizations, in critical infrastructure organizations that expose personally identifiable data are liable to being taken to court. So what is a critical infrastructure organization? Banks, healthcare, energy providers, telecom providers. So these are organizations where the definition of a critical infrastructure organization or institute, CII, Critical Infrastructure Institute, is if this organization gets compromised, there is potentially a threat to the country. Right? For example, if Tenaga Nasional gets compromised through leaked PII, I mean, you might say, well, what's the harm if a bunch of clients' information gets leaked? Well, that's not so, well, it's a commercial harm to the entity. But what if in the list of client details that were leaked is an employee who works for the company? So now I have details about an employee who works for the company, and using a host of this information, or just even some of this information, I can start planning out or mapping a social engineering attack, which we will touch on in module 2. Right? So that's why the risk is there when this gets exposed. So just to run through the rest of the PII, date of birth, phone number, email address, bank account number, employment details. Now again, it's a bit vague or generic. Employment details, medical records, biometric data. But these are the types of data that, like I said, this is an umbrella definition, right? So when you go to like employment regulation, then the employment details data that is critical gets broken down to your ID card number, your access card, your office email address, your account login, etc. Right? Likewise for medical records and biometric data, that falls under the healthcare umbrella, and they would break it down to your X-ray films, your blood lab results, things like that, right?
That's an invasion of privacy.
So yes. So just to touch a bit on what one of those subsets is PHI. So personal health information, right? That is linked to an individual is subject to stricter regulations for the very reason that you just mentioned, Tasha. It's quite risky because knowing things about somebody's medical history, one embarrassment is one thing, but also the potential threats to the person's life, especially if it's a hospital that has exposed all this. You actually have access into a hospital's internal systems. I mean, you may think it's sci-fi or what, but every hospital today has online services, right? If I've got the credentials of somebody who's an administrator in the hospital, I log on to the system. I know, no offense to everyone, but I know everyone's in the hospital. I don't like everyone, and I realize that he's having blood transfusion. I can go and change the records and swap the blood type. And that could lead to fatal consequences. Because how often do you hear of mistakes like that happening and it gets caught in the last minute? But if an hospital depends entirely on just the system and doesn't have a human checkpoint in between all those kind of critical tests. Those kind of things actually happen. Okay, I think that's all for protected data types that I wanted to cover. Alright, welcome back everybody. Now we're going to go into Module 2, where in Module 1 we've learned about what security compliance is. We've learned about how the kind of assets that we need to protect, what is the definition of an asset, and also who is responsible for creating the kind of compliances or the organizations or entities that set up compliances. Another word for it could be guidelines, etc. And then also what a policy is actually about, which is essentially putting compliances into words and in paper. And then the type of data that we need to protect and the kind of sensitive information that has to be. The main reason for understanding all this and learning what this type of data is, because then you know what needs to be protected. Because it becomes very overwhelming when you talk to people about cybersecurity. You have to protect, they just think it's just too much, I don't know what to protect. But if you have an understanding of what is critical, what is sensitive, that's where you then start understanding how we can protect this more securely. So the next module is about resisting social engineering attacks. Now the phrase or the term social engineering, I think, is quite common today. A lot of people have an understanding of what it means. So just a quick check around the table. What would be a one sentence definition of social engineering for you? Let's say, Shermaine, what would you consider social engineering? Or what's the first thing that comes to mind when someone tells you social engineering?
Like stuff like phishing or like scams, something like that.
Phishing or scams? Okay, Dina.
Some kind of like highly planned attack to intentionally meant to bring down a person.
Highly planned,
Yeah.
intentional, correct? Tasha?
Mine would be, yeah, similar, an attack, but more like a particular race, a particular type of people, particular area.
So targeted,
Yeah,
more
targeted.
targeted.
Yeah, more targeted.
Anyone?
Think about it, deep fake.
So all of you are right. So it's just so all that falls under the definition of what social engineering attack covers. So what we're going to go through the next few slides is the definition of what social engineering actually is, and the understanding the kind of goals that the attackers have. Right? What is their intention? What's their motivation? What motivates people to do this attack? Because some of them are very straightforward and simplistic and opportunistic, like I mentioned earlier, but some are very, very well thought out and planned over months or years. The many attack vectors they use. So an attack vector is essentially the method or the way that the attack is implemented. How do they get to you to fulfill the attack goal that you have? High value targets, who attackers really go after, and you'll be surprised. People typically think only CEOs, the finance managers are people who are targeted by social engineering attacks. But I'll show you some examples of why that is not necessarily the case. And in fact, that's very less the case now than it used to be before, because there are other high value targets that people attack. Go after, sorry. The 15 plus types of the most common types of social engineering attacks. Some of you have mentioned a few of it already. So we'll go through a comprehensive list of all the various types of social engineering attacks that we have today. And finally, most importantly, we'll end the module with understanding, okay, now you know what the goals are, what the motivation is, how they come in, how they do it, what's the method they use. And so how do we actually protect ourselves against it? And again, like I said earlier, there's no way to be 100% protected against cybersecurity. But and as long as you are able to, this seems a bit fishy. As long as you suspect something, then you can do something about it. Make sure you do something about it. Right? Okay. What is social engineering? The definition is the art of manipulating people into divulging confidential information or performing actions. So there's a psychology behind an attack. So that what do attackers usually do? They go on, they rely on three main things. Actually four, which we'll touch on the next slide, but just trust, fear, and urgency. So this is always a common theme when you look at the type of attacks that happen today when people are targeting somebody. So social engineering, again, in the name you understand that it refers to, with the word social, it refers to people, right? This is not an attack on a machine specifically, this is not an attack on a server, this is not an attack on a specific type of phone, etc. It's social, it's people. And why? Because, as it says here, right? A machine or a firewall is emotionless. You can't convince a firewall to give you its password, right? But you can call an employee and use trust, fear, and urgency to exploit that and get a password. So what are the key criteria that define what is a social engineering attack? So the psychological manipulation we talked about earlier, right? Because you can manipulate a person, but you can't manipulate a machine. And people do this using different methods. Next is goal driven. There is a target, an incentive. People think it's usually financial incentive, and yes, that is the case many of the times, but it's not the case all the time. And later we will go through some examples of different types of goals that the attacker has to achieve their outcome. And when you look at this, don't assume that social engineering attack is just somebody in the basement trying to do this for fun. This attacker can be, yes, Shermaine one day deciding she wants to hack into Tasha's bank account. It could also be me one day trying to bring down the whole company, or it could be the Iranian government trying to figure out how to bring down the American government, right? So it's not so straightforward as one person attacking the other. And all this, and who is the attacker and who is the victim, ultimately is defined by what the goal is for the attack. So next, there are various attack vectors. We'll touch a bit on the types of attack vectors that there are. Simple ones or common ones that you know about, like you mentioned phishing, which is using email typically. And now there's also the terminology smishing. I don't know if people have heard of that. There's wishing. There's we'll go through this. That's my mind. But again, so just to I'll explain to you what all these are. Common tactics, which is how do they do it? So the underlying method or the vector that's used is quite limited, because how can I get to you to do something? So there's a method of communication that needs to be there, right? And methods of communication are limited. You're using email, you're using SMS, now you use instant messenger and things like that. So these are the common vectors, but the implementation or the actions that is done on that vector could be varied. So that's where you look at the different types of tactics that are used. And like I mentioned earlier, it targets anyone, so never be lulled into thinking that, oh, I'm not the CEO, I'm not a big fish in this company, nobody's going to care about me, and I don't have to worry about some random person trying to be my friend on LinkedIn. Oh, she looks pretty, or he looks hot, alright, that's my friend. So things like that, where your guard is let down for an instant, and then someone says, hey,
okay, yeah, actually I remember all this. And you stop doing that. But you forget that 2 months ago you had already let this person in. And then in the background, you don't know what's happening. And the bigger threat now is it's evolving with AI. What that mainly that falls under two categories actually. When we talk about AI with social engineering attacks, one, it helps you create a new way of getting to people. It's a new attack vector, but more importantly, it's actually helping you refine the other tactics that you use. Historically, an email might be quite obvious when it's coming from an unreliable source, right? Someone's telling you, oh, your bank account has been hacked, please log in here. You know, the spelling is all over the place, the grammar is off. But now with AI, it can be very sophisticated. Right, so the psychology of attack. So there are 4 key aspects of this. So so understanding the psychology of the attack is the importance of understanding the psychology of the attack. Because, like I mentioned earlier, social engineering is about people. The key vulnerable vector here is a person. So when the target is approached with authority, someone pretending to be the CEO or the IT director, like police, lawyer, to demand compliance without question. Now, so the example here is, this is the CEO, transfer the funds now. So how has that authoritative message from that person of authority been forwarded to you? Is it a phone call? Is it an email? Is it an SMS? So those are things that you need to think about before you do something. So that's where, if you don't understand the psychology of the thing, you think, oh, this is an email from the CEO, straight away I need to do this. Without understanding that the attackers are using this psychology, you wouldn't think about thinking twice, right? So that's where the authority comes in. The trust, rapport and familiarity. Again, exploiting helpfulness or impersonating a known colleague to lower your defenses, right? Again, if your colleague is telling you, hey, it's me, your colleague from HR, I need your bank password because I can't transfer your pay for this month. The bank is asking me to log in. You're like, yes, I want my pay this month. Please get this done, sorted quickly. And you just, without thinking twice, you've given out your password. Urgency. So it's about creating a false deadline to bypass critical thinking and force a hasty mistake. So again, it's a combination of the different components, right? If someone of authority sends you a message saying you need to do this urgently, you're like, oh, this is an important person and he wants it. I want to help. I don't want to be a hindrance in this. I want to help the company and do things. So these are factors that are being exploited by the attacker, and ultimately fear. Because then you add on the fact that if you, let's go through an example, right? So you get an email from the CEO and he says, oh, can you please transfer the funds now? And then you say, I don't know if this is the right thing to do or not, let me speak to. But before you can speak to someone of a higher authority or just to validate, a second email comes in, you need to do this urgently because I'm stuck here, I've got no access to my phone and all that. And then, if you're still delaying, another email comes, why are you not doing? Are you not working today? So they've started instilling the fear in you already. So a combination of this makes you more likely to do something outside of standard procedures, right? Because even though you've been well trained and this is the process you have to follow, this is what I have to check, I need to double check, I need to get approval from this person, but because of this combination of fear and urgency that has come from a person of authority, you think it's okay to bypass all that. So ultimately that's the psychology of the attack, and that's the principles that I use for attackers whenever they try to commit a social engineering Tell.
Like in my husband's company, right? So
Yeah.
when he just joined, they all have to go through like this kind of training where they learn about cybersecurity and everything like that. And then they've been told that they will be going through like a random checks every once in a while. So all of them didn't really think much about it because training is quite normal.
Yeah.
They didn't really think much about it. And then that week itself, all of them, like some of them, not all of them, got like emails from quote unquote their CEO. And then they said, I'll click this link, I need you to verify something, since you guys are here, I just check something like that. And out of the 5, 3 of them clicked on it because they trusted the CEO. Because the CEO is like that friendly guy, and he's also quite a prominent fella. So they checked, and then they clicked, and then immediately they got a message, please find parties from HRDC.
Wow.
Oh my
That's not a very good start.
and the thing is, everything looks like it checks out. Like the banner is there, the email. If you really checked, then you would have noticed. But like if not, you would have seen this fellow from the company and all that. So yeah, all of them were just like, okay, we just got the training last week. How soon could it have been, right? Yeah, they all got caught.
I mean, it's hard to justify or argue with that.
Yeah.
But do you want me to stand here and watch you and click every email? You got trained last week. So that kind of training is good, but the challenge, a lot of organizations and this is from my past experience, a lot of companies say, yeah, we send them for training every quarter, every year, but still when we do this test, 60%, 70% will still click on it because there's no consequence. And then one organization, I was in Singapore, I was delivering a talk there. So one of the organizations was the nuclear agency in Singapore, one of the newer agencies. They say, yeah, so what they have done is they tie the phishing ransomware attack exercises to their KPI and their bonus.
Oh, that'll do it.
If you get caught clicking more than once within a period of 6 months, your bonus gets affected.
Oh my goodness.
After that, it went down to 0.
Oh,
Nobody clicked.
Right.
Yeah, correct. That's the only issue.
Please don't get any ideas.
That'll be very funny. I myself will be working for it.
The bonus pot will just keep growing, nobody claiming the money. So that's a very good example, and that's human nature, right? Sometimes we just think we are trying to be helpful, we're trying to be
Comply,
correct. But unfortunately, in this day and age, we need to take extra steps. Your spidey senses need to be up. You have to be aware. Right. So now we've understood what social engineering is. We've understood the psychology behind it. But why do people do it? What are the key reasons for social engineering? I mean, this is not a comprehensive list, but these are the most common reasons, right? So the first one is data theft. So what I mean by data theft is I want access into an organization so that I get their intellectual property. So maybe I get into a bank and I get list of personal data is one thing, list of maybe the kind of products that they're selling, and then I can copy that and sell that. Or client list of a competitor organization, right? Like another trading provider, you want to go to them, you want to get their list of customers, and there's two angles to that. One, you can try and steal the customers, or two, you can go badmouth the company to the customers, right? But that leads to another goal. But data theft is one of the common. Data destruction now is an extension of data theft. A variation of data theft. So now you commit social engineering attack to get into the organization's data, and you want to pull out the data, but that is stealing the data for your own benefit, for your own gain. But here you want to destroy the data so that that company suffers. So there is causing harm to the organization. You delete their entire customer list. You delete their entire PO software. So that causes harm to your competitor. So that's one of the key examples of data destruction. Financial gain is the obvious one. Be it for an individual, be it for an organization, be it for a country as well. So I don't think it's so common now, but we're going back maybe about 8-9 years ago, when I was in the UK, I was doing a master's in cybersecurity risk and management. And then one of the modules, there was a trainer who worked in the industry who studies and analyzes the kind of attacks that are happening around the world, specifically social engineering attacks, ransomware attacks, and the kind, right? So he had a tool where you could map the targets of attacks, where they were coming from, and what the targets were in different countries. And then he filtered the information to say that, you know, every country has like an agency, an organization. The US has NSA, right, the National Security Agency. China has an agency. North Korea has an agency, but it's dedicated hackers and attackers. But what is their, Russia, for example, has an agency like that. But what is their goal? And that company, they studied the goal of these different attackers by seeing where were they targeting. They recognize, okay, this whole group of IP addresses or identifiers comes from, for example, the Russian region, and they know that that's where the attackers are based. Who are they targeting? So he came up with an analysis. So Russia, they found, were targeting a lot of infrastructure organizations in Europe, like the Swedish nuclear agency, the Swedish power agency, and all that. So their idea was to try and cripple these countries so that they become indispensable to the other economies. And the US, they saw, were targeting intelligence agencies in Russia, in Asia, for China as well. But the interesting thing was, and this was about 10 years ago, the Chinese attackers were targeting companies in US and Europe that were involved in food manufacturing, like Nestle, dairy farm products and all that. And then the study is because they were looking at ways to steal intellectual property on how to generate food, create food to support their population, because that was their biggest requirement. So a lot of people immediately think that, oh, when there's this nation-state actor, it's about what you watch in the movies, right? Trying to bring down the government, trying to have war and all that. But it's interesting when you actually dive deep down into the details of it. You realize, and then the value it is then you can understand what needs more protection rather than just having a blanket protection that's not so effective. Financial gain, and so the flip side is financial harm to your competitors, right? And a bit like data theft and data destruction. So financial harm is you want a competitor's share price to fall because they've been hacked. You want to make sure that they lose their list of clients, etc. Right? Political gain is a bit of what I was talking about earlier. Different countries have entities that do this, but the other one is a word that might not be hacktivism. Hackers who have a cause. Like, I don't know if you've heard of an anonymous group. So that's basically an international group of hackers who are highly skilled, but they attack people who or organizations that don't align with their cause. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. Right? Like I remember at the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war, they were targeting Russian government and all that, but that stopped after a while. Not say rumor, some people say it's because a lot of the hackers are actually Russians as well. And then if you're doing this from Russia, you can actually be traced and all that, so they stop. So then there's a balance, right? So you are only willing to fight for the cause if people don't know who you are. Once you're not willing to put yourself on the line, so how much of an activist are you? So that's one of the examples of political gain. Recognition. So this is one where you have people who, after I have hacked into Maxis and exposed there, I actually put my company's logo there to show them who actually did it. Because I'm proud, I want recognition, right?
Of hacking.
Of hacking.
Yeah, that's
Oh, that I was able to.
Yeah, they claim
But
But it won't be my actual name. It will be
Right.
my pseudonym that I use
Right,
online,
right.
so that people within the community, they know, oh
It's
wow,
impressed, like,
this guy can really
big
do
task.
this, right?
Yeah.
He knows his shit,
Yeah.
right?
I think there was a story back then, like someone managed to hack into Google and then Google hired him.
Yeah. Oh, that happens a lot.
They're like,
Yeah,
Now
like,
they
yeah,
just-
this guy.
Yeah.
Because that's, in fact, now they do what they call hackathons as well, where they throw it in like a closed
Oh, wow.
environment. So before they launch a new product, they will bring a bunch of hackers and all that. Say, okay, can you try and hack into this? Whoever can hack into it gets $100,000 and all that.
And then they fix the issue before.
Correct. So, but the other side of it is you've got to sign that you're not going to expose what you've done and all that.
Yeah.
And then there's hackers and then there's ethical hackers as well, two types. So hackers are typically those who do things with the intention of financial gain or recognition or that. An ethical hacker organization is people who are similarly skilled who will do that. For example, what an ethical hacker would do is, let's say Google has launched a new product, right? Let's say Gemini, their AI tool. I have a cybersecurity consultancy with some incredible hackers who work for me, but their day job is mainly to try and, when a company has had an attack, they try and figure out what the flow was and deconstruct the attack so that they know what happened and then they can protect it in the future. But they are very skilled, they could also do the attack. So Google has come out with this new product publicly. They try and attack it and they found a few loopholes where they can exploit the product. So what ethical hackers do, as opposed to a bad faith hacker, would then publish their name on the Gemini landing page, saying, "Oh, I've hacked you. This is me." Whereas an ethical hacker who has been able to do the same thing would then approach Google separately and tell them, "This is the gaps I found. You need to plug this in the next week." If Google does not acknowledge the ethical hacker and does not say anything, the ethical hacker after 1 week makes that information public.
Oh,
Wow.
and that's fine.
So that's that's fine because you have said you get
have
the
told them.
I have done all this.
Right.
Yeah.
I can show you what I have done. I have all the track. I have not stolen any information. I've contacted Google.
Right.
I've asked them to do it. They've just ignored me for the last 1 week.
Okay.
And here you go. Have a go.
Okay.
So does these like ethical hackers, so companies that work on stuff, they have them internally as well?
So they would have such people now.
That's fine.
Previously there would be, because now Google can pay more than any other organization, right? So
Yeah.
you want those people in-house. But for an up and coming hacker who wants to find a job
Yeah.
Right.
rather than be on the run all the time because you're hacking,
Yeah.
that's a good way.
I feel like
So
as a hacker,
what-
like what a way to prove yourself.
I know.
You just what
The
company
work.
do you want to work for?
You
You
prove
hack
your
them,
work.
and then you be like, can I have a job?
Hey,
That was really
Exactly. So it's like building your portfolio.
Your
Yeah,
portfolio,
exactly. And then your
Exactly.
resume is like I've had
Yeah.
Microsoft.
So
Yes,
has
it's
this
impressive.
happened then? Like, so for
Okay,
example,
that's a lot.
like, okay, so let's say they told Google, like, these are your loopholes and they didn't fix it and then they made it public.
Yeah.
So what kind of
Now,
companies-
not so often. Maybe like, this is pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, it used to be quite common.
Cool.
Because I think once COVID happened, everybody started going online. So people, I think security became a big issue.
Yeah.
It became an item on the agenda for most board directors as well. But yeah, historically that used to be a claim of fame for companies to get recognition.
Right.
No, so let's say the ethical hacker publishes it. So because they've already warned Google, for example, Google can't take action.
Correct.
And if they do take action, do they financially compensate the person who brought it up? Or
So no, so the intention of those ethical hackers is usually, I've told you this, acknowledge that I've helped you,
Okay.
Right.
pay me something.
Okay, yeah. So
Right.
But you don't want to do this, you don't want to acknowledge, okay, I'll go public with it.
Okay.
Your reputation gets damaged,
It's on the line, yeah.
and my reputation gets boosted.
Right.
People know how good I am.
Got
So
it.
that's the intention there. And finally, revenge, right? So a hacker who gets heartbroken, who knows? But the revenge element can also be a combination of, while because you want an employee who's been disgruntled and unhappy that he or she was let go, there's social engineering and those kind of stuff are the most dangerous because they have had access before to your
True,
social
yeah.
environment, and depending on how comprehensive your policies that you have in place. I mean, how often, even you work for an MNC, if somebody has resigned, how quickly is their email disabled?
Yeah.
How quickly is their access on the HR portal disabled?
Yeah, right.
Unless there's a process in place, it stays on indefinitely, 5-10 years, and unless somebody is actively monitoring this, how would you know if an employee you sacked 2 years ago is still accessing your
Right.
infrastructure? And then if they have malicious intent, they can do things like data theft, data destruction, etc. Okay. So again, this is not a comprehensive list, but these are the most common reasons or common goals of social engineering that we have today. Any questions or anybody have any other thoughts on why social engineering, or why somebody would do social engineering? I think we've covered quite a few.
I have a question. I mean,
Yeah.
there was an incident that last year or 2 years ago. The son study overseas, right?
Hmm.
Posted a video, did a video call, ask for money. So where does that fall under that category? The 4 area earlier on. I think authority, trust, urgency, or fear.
Okay, let's go back.
Yeah.
So actually, I wanted to write this down as well. So the 4 authority, urgency, trust. So sorry, can you repeat the example again?
Yeah, there was a incident where that person claimed as the son of the family
Mm-hmm.
contacted parents saying that they asked for money using a deep fake video. So it wasn't that person, the son, that went back or went somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
but the father, the one who received the video call.
So that's under the psychology of the attack, that falls under urgency,
And fear?
trust to a certain extent, because as far as the father is concerned, that's the son.
Yeah.
I trust my son.
Yeah.
So and then the fear, because something's gonna happen, he needs the help.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of that. But what you're talking about, deepfake,
Yeah.
that's a method of the attack, which we'll touch on later.
Okay.
So that falls under different. So the various methods of attacks that we go through,
Mhm.
you will see that they have elements of this
Okay.
in order to be able to be successful.
There's generally a combination, right? of
Correct.
those.
Okay, so now let's touch on attack vector, which again, like I explained earlier, is the method or path that an attack takes. How do we communicate to the person that we are trying to compromise that we want to compromise them without them actually understanding that that's our intention? So different vectors lead to different outcomes. And different goals lead to attackers taking different vectors. So these are the most common vectors that you have in a username and password, which is essentially credentials that a person is given. Your based on trust, you are given access to the environment using a username and password. Organizational name and personal information. This is information that you gather publicly. So a good example of this is LinkedIn. I go to LinkedIn, I go to a specific organization's page, I find out the staff there, I'm targeting a certain type of staff or a certain department. Okay, I look for the information if they are working in that
It's a great
department.
place actually.
LinkedIn is very, people don't realize how much information they share can actually be used against them. Historically, in fact now people do it as well, but not as much as before. People used to check in locations when they are at a new place
Yes.
and do it in live time.
Yes.
So I said, oh great, I know you're not at home, so I'll go and steal something from your house.
I always thought that was one of the most ridiculous things to do.
But people don't think
Yeah.
as much as you should. Correct. And likewise with LinkedIn as well. Sometimes you realize, why are you putting all this information? You don't need it. This is not your CV. This is just
True.
a way for people to know about you. There's too much details. End user personal information is, when you have a client list, you have their IC number, their phone number, email addresses, etc. So email is so the point here is this vector can be compromised using this information. Email is another vector where you can send mass emails to 100 people or 1,000 people. It's so easy to do, right? Even if 2 people click it, it's a 0.2% success rate, but you can still make tons of money out of the 2 people.
Yeah.
Mobile devices using things like SMS, although now instant messaging is probably the more critical vector that people should do. And physical access is about
Messaging, like,
WhatsApp,
oh.
Messenger on Facebook,
Okay.
DMs on Instagram and things like that.
How safe is iMessage?
iMessage is just another variation of WhatsApp.
Okay.
But they have more. How secure is iMessage? As secure as you make it.
Is it safer if, let's say, iMessage, you can choose for people to be able to iMessage you from your number and your email? Is it safer for it to be one? Either, like not your number, because number is easier to.
No, iMessage is just making it more convenient in that sense. Safer, it depends. Who are you giving the email to?
Okay.
So the difference is.
No one knows basically, then it's fine.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
No, but the point is, if let's say you use email as the iMessage is just a different platform for the email to come in. Because if it doesn't come into your iMessage, it's going to go into your email provider, right? So how your iMessage pulls, because at the end of the day, iMessage is pulling the email from the email provider. It's just giving you the convenience of being able to see it in your iMessage rather than having to go to the tool of the email provider.
Okay.
From a security perspective, you can have services or products with your email provider that maybe does phishing checks. So it scans all your email to flag what could be a potential phishing email or what could have. So that's where you implement it. So there needs to be checkpoints on where they implement it. By the time it comes to your phone, it's how you interact with it. You become the weak link if something happens. So lastly, physical access is about people physically getting access into a building, and so things like tailgating or shoulder surfing, phrases that we'll dwell a bit on later. So the next one, Okay, so this is where we're going to look at the different types of attacks that can be implemented. And when we go through this individually, you will see that for these types to be successful, it's a combination of one of the psychological factors, right? So the first one, impersonation. So that's where deepfakes come here, right? So I won't say 10 years ago, 3 years or 4 years ago, it will be so obvious when somebody puts up a deep fake, right?
Yeah.
You can see the whole face doesn't move or just the lips are moving. There's no muscle moving around. But today, in a matter of minutes, you can create a deep fake video of any one of us using a free tool, right? So the challenge, or I won't say the challenge, I say, so how to, we'll touch a bit on how to defend it, but when this happens, what you need to do is start looking at this, the psychology of it, right? Using the example that you gave earlier, right? So he's got a message from the sun, a video from the sun, that has, okay, because it's the sun, there's an element of trust over there, right? And then the sun says, oh, I need this money now. It's an element of urgency. And then, if I don't pay this money, they will kick me out of college or kick me out of the university. Then there's the fear element, right? So, you, as a you, typically you wouldn't, right? But once you are aware that, he wouldn't be sending me a video. Why is he not calling me, right? That's the first. So you get things that something. So you need to validate, right? Call him back, call the person back, find another way of communicating with them without them being the initiator of the entire transaction.
Right.
So that's one way around it. Second is a hoax. So it's basically a lie, right? So if somebody, again using the example, they say that they need money and all that, but it's not true. But they try and impose on you by using fear, trust, and authority. Quid pro quo, if you do this for me, you get something back. So click on this link and you win a free car, right? But before you can, click on this link and you get $1,000, right? But before we can send you the $1,000, please log into your bank account so that we can synchronize your money. And then you're like, oh, for $1,000, okay. And then that's where you realize you're making stupid mistakes.
Almost kena last year.
The Maxis.
The Maxis
Don't
one.
say
We
that.
click, and then when you click the link, it's appear exactly like Maxis website.
Right.
And then you have to claim, we have to redeem the points.
Points.
And how do you think? We never have any points. We never Maxis.
Yeah, Maxis was sending out, usually you have like 900 points.
Yeah, exactly. I got the same thing. But I didn't
It's moving very fast. I already put my account number.
Ah.
But luckily we didn't proceed.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, luckily.
Using
So-
telco provider as smart because people don't think as much. I feel like when it's telco.
And
Oh,
using
but-
points also, smart people
So-
are so motivated by points.
But that's a very good example of a comprehensive social engineering.
Yeah,
So
that's very good.
let's say you went through with that, right? You
Mm.
put your account number and then a password and all that.
Yeah.
But if you look at it from another perspective, let's say I was the attacker. Now I've got your Maxis account number and your Maxis password, which lets me do what? Log into your Maxis account. But what can I do with your Maxis account? So there's just my first level of the stages I want to go through.
Right.
So what I can, if my intention is to do, later we will talk about it, a SIM swap, for example. Right? Why would I want to do a SIM swap? Because now I know your phone number. Let's say I already have access. I know that you're a bank account. I know your Maxis password. Maybe not for you, but I can guarantee you at least one person in this room has a similar password for their bank as one of the other providers they use, service providers.
So
Right?
the password is-
So now I know your password for your bank also, right?
Looking at probability.
So exactly, like I said, I'm going to try this. Okay, this is not me being so opportunistic, but I'm going to make a little bit of effort and do that, and then I log into your bank account. But what happens to your bank account nowadays? You have an OTP that gets sent to your phone.
Yeah.
So, but I don't have your phone. But what do I have? I have access to your Maxis account. So I can order a new SIM to replace your existing SIM, sent to my address. So now I have the new SIM, and the OTP gets sent to my phone now. And now I have access to your banking details in your bank account. So it's not. When you think about it, like, yeah, actually it's quite
just a
easy.
Norway.
It's quite easy. But there are little things that you can do to avoid it. I mean, what if you didn't have the same password for your Maxis account as your bank? You could have curtailed it there.
Yeah.
And two, if you maybe don't, because again, OTP is not as safe as it used to be now. Now you need to use things like your
Yeah.
app notification,
Yes.
the device
Yeah.
notification. So that's why you just need to be extra careful.
Sorry, on that note,
Yeah.
you know how on the banking now you can use your Face ID?
Yeah.
Is that a good thing? Yes.
That is possibly the best way.
The best way, okay.
So, this actually I touched a bit on the devices, but I'll elaborate a bit on here. So what that is doing is called multi-factor authentication.
Right.
So what is multi-factor authentication? What are the factors of authentication? So multi-factor means you need more than one, right? But what are the factors of authentication? Something you know, something you have, and something you are. These are the three factors. So what is something you know? Your password, right? You know it, nobody else should know it.
Yeah.
But as we know from, I can't remember who just now in our, the family members know the password, right? So what if the family members, I can't remember Shermin's password, let me write down in my diary.
Right.
And then the diary gets lost one day. So something you know is no longer only you who knows it, right? Something you have. Now that's where the OTP concept started with, right? Only you will have your phone, right? So I send an OTP to you, you are the one who's going to get the number, but you know now that you can spoof somebody's phone number, or your phone could be stolen, and all that. That one is something you are. It's a physical trait. So it can be a fingerprint, it can be an iris scanner, facial scanner, and all that. So that's why when you use scanning on the phone, it's because, in fact, the app is technology's way today of using all three. Because if you have the app, to be able to get into the phone, you will need the passcode, right? So something you know is you. Combine with something you have, which is the phone. And then, but to be able to log into the app, you need to facial scan. That's something you are. So you're using three factors of authentication. So that's why, as of today, that's probably the best, the most.
So it's a
secure.
good thing because I was thinking, is it okay to keep it in my
No,
face?
it's a very good thing.
Thank you.
And then I've had people ask me, oh, because again, this is going back a few years before facial scanning on phones was so common, because I used to fingerprint and all that. Right?
Yes, I've heard.
And you cut the thumb and all that. I said, well, if somebody is going through that length to steal your
God
money,
bless
let
you.
them steal.
God
Lah.
bless
I
you.
said, please, let me, don't cut off my thumb. Let me scan
I'll do
it.
it,
I'll do it for you. Take my money.
That's why we keep getting too much movie.
Correct. That's too much. So pretexting is pretending to be someone else, right? Or creating a scenario. Phishing and smishing. Now phishing, we all know, is emails. So somebody is trying to send you a link to click via email, whereas smishing is essentially the same thing but via SMS.
Yeah.
Okay, now an extension of phishing is spear phishing and whaling. So can anybody tell me what they think spear phishing actually means? What's a spear?
Weapon?
What is at the end of a spear?
Say.
And what is the point of the tip? So you are killing. Okay, you are targeting
Yeah.
something specific, right?
Uh-huh.
So spear phishing is a phishing email targeted to someone.
It's not like
So
a
it's
mass.
not a mass
Oh,
email.
okay.
I'm targeting everyone. So I'm going to curate the content of my email to target him. And this is where a combination of factors come in. Like I scan through LinkedIn to find out where you work, what's your role, right? I got the information. I scan through Facebook or Instagram. I get your account. I find out, oh, what you like to do on holidays. I find out where you go on weekends. I find out, oh, you love biking. You're a member of this biking club. Or you are liking a lot of posts from this particular biking club. So I send you an email. I'm the secretary of the biking club. We understand that you've been an avid follower of our page. We'd like to welcome you to become a member. Click on this link. Are you likely to click? Yes. Very likely. But that hasn't taken a lot of effort on my part. And how can you prevent that? Don't make your profile so public. Yeah? Friends of friends. I mean, if you don't make it public, there's a bit of pointless having a social media profile, right? But be careful and be alert. I mean, in that case, 99% of people will click to it. But what do you do? So, let's say the name of the club is HarleyMalaysiaBikersClub.com, right? You know that that's the website they go to. But when you hover over the link, it goes to www.kapchaimalaysia.com/. This doesn't look right. Right? So then you know, okay, something is fishy here. Then maybe call up the club, say, sorry, I got this email from you. You might get heartbroken and disappointed, but that's unfortunately better than exposing your credentials to someone else, right? So that's spear phishing.
So technically it is good to have your social media accounts on private, right?
So yes, ultimately, because then you know who is accessing or who is seeing the video. But then you could say, oh, but influencers don't have it in private because, but then that is necessary for their business, right? So then they have to. It's a compromise, like you
they
have
also
to.
get attacks. I've seen so many people saying like, hey, if you're getting this
It's
message,
not from
it's
me.
not from me.
Correct.
Yes.
So terrible.
So it's just about being aware and you weighing the risk and benefits.
Is it worth it too?
Is it worth it or not? Correct. Okay, so that's spear phishing. What do you think whaling is? It's an extension of spear phishing. It's a specific type of spear phishing. What's a whale?
Targeting also, but like a big fish or big dog or something.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh.
So you're targeting a big dog,
Okay.
the CEO of the company,
Right.
the financial director, prime minister. Right? So usually when you're people who are responsible for whaling attacks, it's a very powerfully backed organization. They've got a lot of resources. Because I can't just spend some time going through Facebook and so this one they would go through, see what kind of networks they have, who are the, because a CEO is not going to trust an email from the admin of a bikers club, right? But if a CEO gets an email from another CEO, someone he's met at a conference, then there's photos of them online that they were together and talking. So then the trust gets built. Then it is someone of authority, right? So you're using that part of the psychology to get access. Okay, so there's a clue based on this too. What do you think phishing is?
Video.
So email, SMS.
The other V.
Oh, the other video. Visual. Voice.
So sending a voice message where you have the urgency, fear, and basically all, right? Somebody leaves you a voice message. Oh, this is the CEO. I'm in Bangkok for a conference, but suddenly I've lost connectivity to all my devices. Can you please transfer this money to this customer because I need to go for a meeting and I don't want them to be unhappy about it. What do you do? So it's sometimes you're like, oh, he said he's lost his phone, so I can't call him to verify. But I didn't. So so sometimes you have to do it, but don't do it on your own. Go and validate with somebody else who might have another. Maybe that person knows the wife's phone number or what. Then they can call, right? Because if you take authoritative action or unilateral action on yourself, ultimately it falls on you. Why did you do this? Farming is a term that's used for redirecting traffic on a URL. For example, if I think I'm going to www.google.com, so farming is not easy to do because what the attacker has to do is they have to do what's called DNS poisoning. So DNS is an acronym for Domain Name Service. What that means is when you type www.google.com, so this is called a URL, right?
Yeah.
Universal Resource Locator. So it is a resource located universally using this name. But something needs to interpret this name to an IP address, because ultimately how all machines are connected is on IP addresses. It's basically like a house address. It's a collection of numbers, right? So that is where you have a DNS, a domain name server, right? So a domain name server is where it's basically like a database. So it will have an entry that says google.com goes to 10.11.15.138. So that's the DNS resolution for google.com. So globally, there is an institute called INSA. I think it started off as an American institute, but now all the countries under, I think it's under a UN charter as to who manages this institute. So they determine which IP address goes to which domain name. And then of course, to commercialize it, there are different companies that sell this, but ultimately they need to register to this overall database, right? But I mean, think about it. If there is only one database server somewhere in the US that everybody's web browser needs to talk to, it's inefficient, right? So what happens is they then replicate these servers globally, and they use third-party vendors to do it, companies, and they sell the services. So now every company, even Google, have their own domain servers. In fact, when you on your laptop settings, even on your phone browser settings, there is a setting for DNS resolution, and there is an IP address there provided by your, if it's your phone, your service provider, your Maxis or your DG, has input a number there, so that whenever you type, it goes to that DNS server to do the resolution. And that one, it gets all the information ultimately from the main server, right? So that's how DNS servers work. The point I'm trying to get to here is, so anybody who types a URL to get somewhere, there is a DNS resolution to get to the IP address, and then ultimately it goes to the IP address, because that's where that website is hosted. However, farming is, let's say you are a Maxis subscriber, for example. In your phone, the DNS server that does the resolution is a server that's hosted by Maxis, because it will go there first. The reason is 90% of Malaysians will be going to the same websites. So that's the fastest way. So I'll go here, if I can resolve it immediately. But if it's a website that not so common, okay, then I go a next level. I go to the regional one in Singapore. Or it's not that, then I go to the regional one in maybe in China or somewhere else. So that's a flow. The idea is to do it as quickly as possible. So I, as an attacker, I have hacked into Maxis one because they are cheap about the security, and I have replaced the URL for Google to another IP address that I host. So that's called farming. So you are unaware. You think you're going to Google, but you're actually going to an IP address of my website. And then I have complete access over what you're typing. You think you're typing in a username and password, and then it says fail, try again. You think, oh, maybe I typed it wrongly. But no, you've typed it correctly. I've already got your username and password. But I can't can't direct you back to the Google website because I don't have access to it. So I'm just telling you, you failed. Try again. But while you're doing that, I'm then accessing your account immediately and getting full access. So farming. Point of farming is it changes the IP address, the URL. Baiting is like log in to win $1,000. Yes.
Sorry, so for the farming, how can we bother?
That one is very hard. So firstly, for an attacker to do farming, it's not cheap for them.
Okay.
So
It's
they have to
very-
replicate the.
Correct. They have to replicate the whole database and all that. So
What's the way that you would most likely be exposed to that?
you would be most exposed to that if you are targeted. Someone is
Oh,
targeting your
targeted.
organization.
Oh, okay, got it.
So the average user, unlikely.
Okay.
Or if somebody is trying to compromise Google's website.
Okay.
So then, at that point, the responsibility is not really on you already. The onus is on Google why they didn't do something about it. Because when the DNS entry gets since we are talking about, so now, like I said, right, it's the Maxis DNS server that has been compromised, and that's why you went to a wrong site.
Yeah.
But over time, because of the way the DNS structure is, Maxis will then tell the server in Singapore, hey, I have a change in this one. Can you validate?
Right.
And then the server in Singapore said, no, there's been no change to this address. Why are you then, depending on how they've configured it, one can override the other. So maybe the Singapore one will then override the Maxis one, and then Maxis will have to investigate how did this happen, why did ours get changed, and then they'll detect. But the dangerous part is if the Maxis one has more authority and overrides the Singapore one, then that gets a knock-on effect globally. So, and that shouldn't happen because that's not how they should be configured. But that's where I say the onus then is no longer on you. It's on the organization. URL hijacking and farming is similar, but it's easier to detect.
Because
Because
like that A looks different from the Maybank or something like that.
yeah, but that one would be on the. It will be typed out and you can read it. But URL hijacking is usually the link behind that. So it might say login here. When you hover over it, you will see like there's a little box that shows the URL that you're going to. If the URL says maybank.com/, then you say, okay, it's going to the right domain. Or if the URL says eyz.ca, and it's nothing to do with Maybank. That's a URL hijack because I have created an email that looks like it comes from Maybank and I've got it through to you somehow using a vector or using some method. But that's the extent of what I can do to you, right? Now I need to get you to my website. So you may think you're going to Maybank, but you're actually going to the URL that you're clicking on. So you are actually making the conscious decision to go there. Whereas with farming, it's different. You think you're going to Google because that's what the URL says. But then in the back end, somebody has done something wrong. You have a question? Spam and spam. So everybody knows what spam is, right? So email that is obviously has got malicious content and all that. What do you think spam is? The key is in the last two letters.
Instant message, direct message, DM.
So instant messaging. Spam that comes in instant messaging messages.
So like the access ones and stuff.
Like DMs and Facebook Messenger messages. Well, spam is just your generic email. Shoulder surfing. Do you know what shoulder surfing is? So basically, like for example, now Tasha's typing in, someone's standing behind her and she's not aware. You think people are just walking around you, but someone is just they see the URL, they see the password you're typing. Although it pops up as ### or star, you can see what you're typing, right? Your fingers, so you can figure it out.
Really sharp in the eye.
These are the people who will do a literacy analysis and learn an account.
Dumpster diving.
When you grow up tech and people.
Literally,
Take it,
yeah. People go through your trash to find things that they
Oh,
could
device.
exploit. Tailgating is basically, so this is a physical attack. So dumpster diving is nothing to do with, even shoulder surfing actually. It's nothing to do with the actual technology, right? It's somebody physically doing something. So tailgating is, I've tagged myself to go in the door, and then someone is carrying a couple of files and, hey, sorry sir, can you hold the door for me?
Yeah.
And then you think, oh, I'm just helping this guy. But actually, actual fact, that person doesn't work then, right? It's just faking it and getting it. And likewise, so the distinction between tailgating and piggybacking is, tailgating has been done unknowingly to the person. Piggybacking is like, okay, everyone, I know you. But maybe everyone has left the organization a week ago, I don't know. But I have authorized him knowingly that you, so that's called piggybacking. On my authority, I've let you in. Okay. Any questions here on the different types of social engineering? We spent quite a bit of time. All good?
Yeah.
Cool. I want to. So these are basically examples of the different type of attacks, which I think we walked through and talked as we went through them. So I'll just quickly run through this slide. So phishing, again, it's quite generic. You can recognize it by looking at things like spelling and grammar, threats of urgency, suspicious things. But again, when AI is involved, these things become more sophisticated. So grammar and all that doesn't look uncommon or doesn't look suspicious. And then the generic greetings can become targeted as well. So you've got to be more careful nowadays. Spear phishing again, the difference between spear is targeted to a person, whereas whaling is you're targeting a whale, a big fish in an organization. Wishing and smishing. So these are deep fakes, right? Voice phishing is like a deep fake voice, or leaving a voice message, and then smishing is using SMS to do the same thing. So pretexting and baiting, I think I ran through quite quickly. So pretexting is creating a false scenario. So a bit like the example everyone gave earlier of someone's son sending a video. You don't know whether it's true or not, but it's a false scenario and you've fallen for it. And baiting is leaving like physical devices. I suppose now it's because who cares about a 5 meg USB drive or a 5 gig USB drive, right? But and this is a real scenario where it's happened in Ukraine. I think about now it's about 12 years ago, 2014, I think. A nuclear plant got compromised by Russians. And then when they traced back how it happened, apparently a few months earlier, or 6 months earlier, there was a report where people found USB sticks all over the place. And then they thought, oh, free USB stick. At that time, you like 64 gig free USB stick. Okay, so someone actually plugged it into their laptop and then it installed malicious software, and that gave the Russians access. But that person might not have been a very important person or what, but they used that person to then move laterally. That's why over months nobody knew what was happening. And finally, when they managed to get access to the right resources, they shut down the nuclear plant.
I think there was a research done in Singapore or something where they leave like pen drives around. I
To
think
see
like 60% or 60 or 70% of them actually plugged in the drive.
Oh my gosh.
You'd be surprised.
Interesting.
Especially, I suppose, in this culture, it's very hard to say no to something free, right? So how to defend? So these are the things that you do, right? Slow down, don't read emotionally, don't fall for the psychological attack of it. Think twice. I mean, is this normal? Does it make sense? Why is this person communicating with me this way? And then be extra observant. like the grammar, the tone. Maybe grammar now might be difficult, but look at the tone. Is this how this person usually communicates via email? Is this how this person usually talks? And ultimately, the best way would be to phone and verify if possible. Right? Call the person and validate, did you actually ask me to do this? Okay, let's go to this video before we go through the scenarios. I wanted to show you this video on Jimmy Kimmel, which I think a lot of us can relate to.
We're talking about cybersecurity today and how safe people's passwords are. What is one of your online passwords currently?
It is my dog's name and the year I graduated from high school.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
I have a Chihuahua Papillon,
And what's his name?
Jameson.
Jameson. And where do you go to school?
I went to school back in Greensburg, Pennsylvania.
What school?
Hempfield area senior high school.
When did you graduate?
In 2009.
Oh, great.
It's like my cat's name and then just like a random number.
Okay. And so you had this cat for a while?
Yeah, she's my childhood pet.
Aw. And what's her name?
Her name is Jolie.
Jolie. So like a password of yours would be Jolie and then a number.
Yeah.
And number one?
Like my birthday.
Oh, when is your birthday?
June 12th.
Oh, nice. What year were you born?
95.
Oh, great. So Jolie, 6, 12, 95.
Yes.
Got it.
1, 2, 3. Spell Gemma.
Most of them are in Italian.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so like
What's a good Italian password?
my grandma's name,
What's your grandma's name?
Maria.
Maria. So Maria is your password?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so you see, sometimes you're not aware of what you're doing, and that ends up happening, right? So it's just it's a good video, I suppose, to show people how it can happen. Let's go through a couple of scenarios, and then we'll end there, I think. Okay, real world scenario. You receive an urgent text message or email from someone claiming to be the CEO asking for a financial favor involving gift cards or wire transfer. So what do? Do you reply immediately? Do you buy the cards to be helpful, or do you apply the stock method? I suppose the obvious answer here would be the stock method, right? But let's look at the message. So, hi, are you at your desk? I'm stuck in a conference call and can't talk right now. I need a favor. I need to buy you a $100 Apple gift card for a client. Send me photos of the codes. I'll reimburse you by EOD. Okay. Firstly, you see the messages come from the CEO, right? But someone of authority, and they're using urgency as a psychology. And because it's the CEO, you automatically want to trust the person.
Yeah.
But now that a SIM card can be faked, it can be spoofed, right? And when you do, the best way to I suppose validate this is to call the CEO, right? But like I said earlier, if you can't call the CEO, then speak to another person of authority and say, this person. But the other thing that I find a bit should be quite obvious is send me photos of the code here. Yes, that's a bit of a giveaway, right? Even if you want me to buy the gift card, okay, I will email you the gift card.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not sending you a photo of it
That's
here.
true.
Right. So let's do the next scenario. This is IT. We detected a virus on your machine. I need your password to fix it remotely. Right? You're raising a call from a number that looks legitimate. So in this case, do you give them the password? No, it's the obvious answer. Right? Do you trust the caller ID? Now this is a bit ambiguous, right? It says IT support on the phone. It's an office phone.
Yeah.
So office phone should have a record who the IT support is. But again, we know that this can be spoofed, right? So the best way is to tell them, okay, but let me hang up and call you back, right? So that we can do this, because I don't want to give it to you. this is the MFA, right? So multi-factor authentication. You suddenly receive approve or deny prompt on your phone. So, like I mentioned earlier, so the different components of a multi-factor authentication, something you know, something you have, and something that you are. So in this stage, it's something that you have, but it's also a combination of something that you are. Because to be able, I would hope that you have a lock by default, and to be able to even see this screen, you'd have had to verify with your facial recognition, right? So, but how did it get this far without you doing it? It's very easy. Somebody in Moscow has just figured out your password. So they're just trying their luck. They don't know that you've got multi-factor authentication. But if you think, oh yeah, I did this morning, and you accidentally click approve here, well, you've just bypassed your 3 factors of authentication for no, very easily and very simply. So don't ever click unless it's something that you have requested. So when we talked about earlier, waiting when they target high value targets, but you have to be aware that it's not just someone with money or power, because different people in an organization have different value to an attacker. If you're someone who has knowledge, access, or possession of something, it can enhance the impact of an attack. So a C-suite is quite obvious, right? They have access to a lot of information. They compromising them gives you authority to then do attacks on others, right? And the trust, and you can create the trust, fear, and urgency. Somebody who's in accounting thinks, I'm just an accountant, I'm not that important. But if I've hacked into your machine, I've created a social engineering attack with the example like I gave to about Irwan and the biker club earlier. You work in accounting. So now I've managed to ask you to, while you click on the link to apply, I've downloaded a software onto your machine, which is like what we call a keylogger. So now I can actually see everything that you type on your machine on my remote machine. You are not aware. So the next time come payday, you're logging into the bank to make payments and all that. So I now know which bank you go to, I now know what your username is, and I know what the password is. So sometimes they say, oh, but then you have verifier and checker, then the checker needs to log in as well. Great. So you've got an extra layer of security, but not every organization is that, right? Likewise with IT or someone with HR. So you're compromising, so payment probably comes more from HR than accounting, right? But you understand the concept and the idea that just because you're not a C-suite or you're a CEO or you're not a CEO doesn't mean you are not a potential target for social engineering attacks. So just a quick group activity before I end. I wanted to see, I think I've given you all some papers on your table. Just a quick around the table. I wanted to ask, what type of social engineering tactics have you or others you know experienced? An example. And then, in your opinion, like close, maybe not all, I just want to limit this to maybe family. How well are family able to spot attempts to manipulate them for information? And what would be one advice that you would give them from what you've learned today? Okay? So I'll just give you maybe 1 minute to quickly go through, and then we'll have a quick run around the table to see what we have. Okay. You have to go into the door on the right and at the end. Okay. Are we ready?
I can start.
Yeah, okay, Tasha. So, an example of a social engineering tactic that you or others You know, have experience.
Mine would fall, I think, under phishing.
Phishing, okay.
Yeah, phishing. Because I generally go for a lot of the conferences, especially like the ASEAN conference and then the HRDC conference and all of that. And after the ASEAN conference, there was there was another conference in Singapore similarly happening, more like the HRLND realm. And I had to log into the website, not log in, but I need to
The portal.
log into the yes. Ever since then, I've been getting these emails of hi Tasha, Andrea from AL Trainings. We are aware of the impact that you've been making around Southeast Asia. I'm like, Habibi, what are you talking about? Okay, like, and these kind of emails, and we would like to schedule a blah 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 call with you, and work with you. I kept getting that, and I feel like ever since all of those conference events.
Right. So I would say that
With the link.
it's not that would fall under spam rather than phishing.
Spam, okay.
Because I think these are legitimate emails.
Yeah,
Because-
they are, it's proper full name with this company,
Correct.
etc., etc.
And they're just because when you sign up for the course, there's probably something under the terms and conditions of it. You agree to give your details to this company, and they have sold it on to other people.
Right.
And so they're just sending you information that you're not asking for or you're not interested. So
Okay.
that would fall under spam rather than phishing. Because I think those links would be legitimate sites.
But when I looked up the company, it doesn't exist.
Okay. Then maybe it could be a
Yeah.
combination of both. Maybe it could be a combination of both. So one advice that you would give family or friends from what you've learned today.
My mother.
My answer.
I think there's a
Oh, sorry.
default answer for everybody.
That's why you
other
know.
friends, maybe they're friends.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Friends.
No, even mother also, she could have different advice than you.
Yeah.
Based on this, is that?
Yeah. No, based on what you've learned today also,
Okay, based
what
on
do you think that she
I've
might be susceptible
learned-
to?
Oh. I think banking. Banking, because if you get like a message from your bank and stuff like that, I think when it comes to banking, she's quite like, oh, did I do not something wrong? Yeah, I need to check this. Oh, did I do something wrong? Oh, do I have to do this? Like she's very, they follow the process. So that I would.
So because-
help her
yeah.
to avoid clicking any link and also just verify, like for example, me. Every time my bank calls me, I'm like, I'm sorry, I do not trust you. I will call you back. This is literally what I say. Everybody I know has gotten scammed. She is gotten scammed. So I would probably tell her that, like, call the bank and verify this message.
Don't trust blindly.
Don't trust blindly.
And don't click on
And in fact, doubt everything that you see, quite frankly.
Always verify.
Yeah, always.
Good, thank you. Tasha, I'm sorry, Dina, you want to go?
Sure. My one actually it's a recent one. I subscribed to this YouTuber, productivity YouTuber. His name is Ali Abdal, and I just got an email from like his thing 2 days ago saying that they were hacked, and so explaining that on April 3rd they unauthorized third party gained access to the server hosting aliabdal.com, and then explaining what kind of happened there, and then saying how their subscribers are affected. So they're saying likely your name and email address has been, exposed to compromised and exposed to them, and also like what topics you're interested in when you signed up, which is productivity or whatever it is, that they note these details.
So that's actually very good of
of
them.
the company to do.
Yeah.
Because, so what would you do with that information now?
Me?
You just delete the
Good
email
question.
and go on your life.
I would probably.
No, I mean, it's not
I'm thinking
I'm
like this
curious
is-
to see if that has made you
Yeah.
think of something.
I'm thinking because it was a subscription thing where there's like no account or password thing that I can change. So unsubscribing now, I'm assuming is used.
Okay, so there was no account created.
There's no account, yeah. So just
your
it's one of
email.
the mailing list.
Just your email address.
Yeah, it's a mailing list type situation. So if there was a
And
password,
then
please
it's
probably
fine.
change the
Change the
password.
password, correct. That was our question. The
Yeah.
password, highly likely that my password might be used somewhere else as well.
Mm.
So just change the passwords wherever else
Right.
that you use a similar password.
Yeah.
Okay. And what advice that you would give your mom or someone else?
Maybe from what we've learned today about when we get emails to hover over,
See
things
the
and make sure
URL,
that it's
where it's going.
make sure that it's making sense and going to the right place. Yeah.
Cool. That'd be great. Everyone?
Me, when you receive a call from legit number, mobile number. So I mean, knowing our industry, right? We receive unknown people, right? For maybe for quotation or what, you automatically answer it. But the moment you answer it, it's just quiet, and you know that's a scam.
So one thing I would say that is wait for the other person to speak first.
Yes.
Because sometimes if it's just completely quiet, you realize that it disconnects after a while.
That's when after we know what. But first time you don't know.
Hello, hello.
And you talk about your customer.
You start shouting
Yeah.
louder.
Yeah.
Correct. That's very good. Okay, so that will be the advice that you would give, right?
Install Truecallers.
Sorry, I have one more thing to add for my mom. Do not, if someone calls you or sends you a video and it's my sister or myself, do not trust it, verify it. Because what you talked about earlier, voice.
But yeah, so yes, is good advice, but sometimes like if you're calling through WhatsApp, there is an encrypted connection between both sides. So there is already a level of validation being done.
iMessage?
iMessage as well. It's fine. Like FaceTime,
sorry.
it's
Yes,
fine.
okay.
That's fine. But if it's like
Regular call.
someone calling through Facebook or Instagram or what, then it's a bit iffy.
Okay, gotcha.
Because I can create a profile. Okay, everybody, I suppose with that, we've concluded the 4 modules we wanted to cover today. So we're going to go through, before we end, we're going to go through a closing summary where we'll recap what we've done for the whole session today. Also want to do a quick a quiz, just to quiz with answers. Don't worry, I'm not going to challenge you too hard, but just to refresh some knowledge that we've shared throughout the session, and then also recap on what our learning outcomes were from the beginning of today. Okay, so a recap of the modules that we've done, right? So we started with security compliance. So we had the definition of what is security compliance, how do we identify who creates the compliance requirements, and how that actually trickles down to becoming policies that are written down and implemented by organizations, which ultimately is what we all have to follow as employees or as users of a service, right? And then we also talked about the type of data that would be classified as a protected data type, be it general personally identifiable information, PII, or personal health information, PHI. And again, we talked about the umbrella that PII is for all the types of information, and different industries or organizations, industries or governments will have specific filters or identifiers that fall into theirs, like PHI is for the healthcare industry, right? And at the end of the module, we're talking about how incident reporting needs to be done. What's the process, what's the flow, what kind of information needs to be included when you do incident reporting so that you can have a traceability to understand what happened. And the key value in that is you know how to improve or prevent future attacks from the or similar types of incidents. Module 2, we did social engineering, where we talked about what is social engineering. And the key is in the word social, right? It's the psychology of attack that is used to target a specific person. This is not an attack that is targeting machines or servers. We spoke about what are the goals of social engineering, what kind of motivation they have. Does anybody remember some of the goals of social engineering? What's the intent? What's their motivation? I suppose ultimately. Financial gain was one.
Data,
Data theft, correct. And things like revenge, right? That's about it. Clearly, Shamin has a hard set on revenge. And then things like activism and political gain, so on and so on. And also, we talked a little bit about how we identify these different social engineering attacks. We looked at the 15 different types of attacks. We were talking about phishing, smishing, pretexting, whaling, hoax, correct?
Yeah.
And a whole different list of 15, right? Defending against social attacks. So we also talked a bit about what are the steps we can take to prevent or be alert about this. So ultimately, we have to understand that this is the psychology of it, the authority, urgency, fear, and trust that they try to create to make you do something that you would typically not do. So to help you act out of your normal behavior. But if we are aware that this is their intent, or this is what they are going for, then we can be a bit extra careful and do things like validate outside of the method that they're using. I suppose the key thing to understand about social engineering attacks, don't just rely on the flow of information coming from them. Make sure you validate the other way as well, one way or another. So at least there is a two-way validation. Thirdly, we talked about securing devices. Now this is about your mainly phones, but also laptops and iPads and all that. So these devices are so powerful today that a lot of people's lives depend on it. And a lot of organizations probably don't recognize how exposed those devices are. So the most powerful device, and sometimes it could be the least secure. So we talked about things like physical security. How do we make sure that it's physically safe? And this includes things like making sure you have necessary, if it's an older device, you don't have other types of authentication, make sure the password is strong enough, or it uses a pattern, or if it's a newer device, in fact I think any device less than 6 years old today should have facial recognition of at least, at the very least, fingerprint scanning, right? So ensure that you utilize that as part of the physical security, because if there is no physical security, then the whole device is accessible by whoever gets access to it, and then your digital presence becomes vulnerable. So somebody with your phone can very easily compromise all your resources, and it will be very hard for you. For example, if somebody who's compromised your phone and they start doing transactions using the banking app on your phone, the onus and the responsibility is on you for not securing the device, because the bank has, through their implementation of the applications and all that, have an understanding with you that, okay, this much is secure, but you need to secure on the other side as well. And that's where the digital presence is important, right? So make sure that you are not writing your passwords of things on paper, because that is your access into the digital and digital infrastructure that we are using, resources that we are using. Digital presence also talks about things like what kind of resources are you accessing on your phone. So this is where a lot of organizations will allow you to work remotely on your phone, but if they give you a corporate device, then that device is the property of the employer, right? So they are free to install whatever they want, and you have to comply with that. But a lot of people today rather use their own personal device to do these things. And if you want to do that, what happens is they usually insist on installing a certain type of software on your phone, that allows you to give what's being used for corporate. We didn't get the chance to talk a bit about this, but there's also the element of certain tools where technology today is that impressive or comprehensive that, for example, if you're accessing Gmail on your personal phone and your corporate email is also Gmail, right? And there are tools today where, let's say, an employee has left the organization or you fired the employee, but you haven't got around to removing the application from or the emails from the device, right? Because you can do that remotely, but that might take time. But there are tools where you can say, you can prevent situations where, let's say, I'm the employee who has been fired. I'm like, okay, screw you. I'm going to copy all the customer lists and all that and send it to my private email. So if I have the access on my phone, it's very easy to do. I just access the email on my corporate account, I screenshot it, and then I paste it onto an email on my email. But there are tools today where you can actually prevent that from happening. So you block the screenshot when it's a corporate version of the account.
Oh, wow.
And then if it's only the public private version, then that's fine. So a lot of organizations, if you're allowing that level of granularity or flexibility to your organizations, you have to be aware of the risks that come with it as well, the devices. In authentication method, we talked about all the multi-factor authentication methods as well, right?
Is that why a lot of companies do allow you to log into your company emails and things like that on your personal?
Yes,
Because-
because they don't. That's very right on the laptop, because then they have no control over what you're downloading.
Right, because it's
Whereas
your personal.
if it's a corporate laptop, they could have installed the software that will stop you from copying it onto your personal. And the authentication methods, we talked about multi-factor authentication. You remember the first one is what you
What you know?
know,
What you have,
what you have,
what you want.
What you are.
correct. So that's the three key multi-factor authentication methods. And lastly, we touched a bit on generative AI. We talked about what is artificial intelligence, and then what is the generative element of artificial intelligence. We also talked about how AI prompting works today, how we have to be aware of what we are putting into AI when we use prompting, because there are, again, a bit like the tools we use, there's the corporate version, there's the public version. So if you're using the corporate version, there are guardrails and restrictions where you can be a bit more free in what you put into it. But if you're using a public version, it's the wild, wild west, right? You don't know where the information is going, you have no control over it, and it might come back to bite you. And lastly, the legal and ethical risks of AI. Sometimes when I talk about this, people say, oh, you mean about robots trying to kill you? Well, yes, to a certain extent, but that is a far-fetched reality. That's not to say people are not creating robots to kill other people, right? The armies and all that, they are robots out there to do that. So, but an extension of it is if you allow it to do more than it should be without having guardrails. So that's where the ethical element of it. So this machine is allowed to make its own decisions to a certain extent. So that's why you put the guardrails, and that's where the legal and ethical risk needs to be considered. But again, once that falls into the wrong hands, then it's a bit more risky. Okay, so I've got a few questions that we're going to go through here. I think there's 5 questions. It's all multiple choice, so it shouldn't be too difficult. But let's see if we can all remember them today. So first question, what is the primary difference between spear phishing and whaling? A, spear phishing uses SMS, while whaling uses email. You all agree?
No.
Whaling is a type of social engineering that targets a specific high-profile individual like a CEO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's more what whaling is. So spear phishing targets many people at once, while whaling targets a small group. not the best answer. Technically, this is right because if you're targeting a CEO, it's a smaller group. But this is a better answer, right? There is no difference. They're the same attack. Then why ask the question? So yes, correct. So whaling is a type of social engineering that targets a specific high-profile individual. As opposed, so the key difference between whaling and spearfishing. Spearfishing could be targeting. Actually, sorry, I need to correct myself. Spearfishing doesn't target many people. That is just general fishing. Spearfishing is targeted at individuals who are of value. So this is where you look at people like someone working in HR or the IT admin, but they're not a whale. They don't have access like the CEO would. Which of the following is a guideline for defending against social engineering attacks related to physical surroundings? Open email attachments from trusted senders without checking. Always hold the door open for strangers to be polite. Practice situational awareness and don't let tailgaters in. Share your building access code card with a colleague if they forget theirs. Anybody has any? C. Practice situational awareness and don't let tailgaters. So tailgaters are what again?
People who sneak in when the person in front of them has access to the paper.
And as opposed to what's the other type of person that you allow to come in knowingly? What's the terminology for that? Piggybackers, correct. The piggybacking. Third one. Which of the following is an example of a security control that falls under something you know? A fingerprint scan, a security token that generates a code, a strong passphrase, or a retinal scan. Strong passphrase, right? So, a fingerprint scan is something that you have. A security token, a fingerprint scan is something that you are. Security token that generates a code is something that you have. And likewise, a retinal scan is something that you are. According to the module on securing devices, what is a key risk associated with IoT, Internet of Things devices? A. They are too expensive for most companies to purchase. They are often insecure and can be an entry point for attackers on a network. They do not connect to wireless networks. Or D. They require frequent mandatory software updates from IT. I don't know if you are familiar with IoT devices, but let's take a guess. See if anybody has any suggestions. What do you think, Sherman? B. They are often insecure and can be an entry point. Anyone else have a different answer? Wow. Yes. So, because the others are subjective, right? They're too expensive. Yeah, that doesn't matter. It's still can still be compromised. They do not connect to wireless networks. Even if they don't, they can still be compromised. And they require frequent mandatory software updates from IT. Yes, they may require software updates, but typically they don't happen from IT. So IT and OT, operational technology, are usually different things, but that's a whole different course that you have to understand it about. Okay, lastly, if you receive an email from your CEO asking you to buy gift cards urgently and text him at a personal number, what type of social engineering attack is this most likely to be? Yeah, T. Usually, if you don't know, go with the longest answer, right? So this is clearly an impersonation because the key was why you're asking me a personal number, right? And then if it includes a voice message, then it could be wishing as well. Wishing. Okay, here's a quick activity I want to know. So this is an AI generated photo. It has 6 potential compromises or vectors. So it's a combination of attack methods, social engineering methods, social engineering vectors in this picture. So how many can you identify?
The first one being the door open confirmators.
So this falls under
Tailgating.
tailgating, correct?
The confidential documents left on the table.
Yeah, correct. So
The
that's
salary.
everything here.
Thumb drives.
The thumb drives
The
here.
password.
The sticky notes.
It's probably the
And
password.
the
Yeah.
laptop is not locked.
I think we got all six.
Ooh, yeah.
So that's the tailgating.
Yeah.
That's the password, laptop. This is the okay, sorry. This is a you can't read it. Apparently, that's a phishing email. Okay. And this one, the laptop left unlocked. This is the USB sticks, and this one too are the confidential. It generated such a huge picture, but everything was just here. Why not something here? Why not something here? Yeah, eh? So right, so the password on sticky notes, never write passwords down. Use a password manager like LastPass. These are brands, but
Those were the best.
no, these are just
Okay.
random suggestions. Or like Shermin was saying, she uses Apple
Keychain.
Keychain.
Is
So-
Keychain good enough?
Keychain good. So it's an alternative for LastPass or Apple.
Okay.
But the limitation there is that you have to be using an Apple device.
Ah.
So if you're using whatever. So what I do is I use Keychain, but for like the apps I always use Keychain. But if it's like a website, I actually use the Google password manager. Because then whenever I log into Google or any browser, if I'm in a friend's house or what, I can still use my passwords. So that's an option. So the unlock screen that we saw, so leaving your screen unlocked allows anyone to access your data. Lock it every time you step away. So this one I have an example. Although now I don't know, maybe now people will get fired for doing something like this. This was 10 years ago in the UK. So we used to, and I was working for McAfee as well, a security vendor. So we used to not target people. I mean, we are all close colleagues and we know what we're doing, right? So, but if anybody for whatever reason accidentally leaves the laptop unlocked or what, we'll send an email to the boss or to the manager. But the boss knows that we do this, right? And say, you suck, piece of shit. And then they don't know what happened. And then someday the boss will reply, "Come here. You left the laptop unlocked." So today, someone said, "Hey, write a letter to HR and say I quit lah." And all that. I said, if HR is not in on this, then might be consequential. Tailgating was the one of the guy following the other person. So don't let people follow you through secure doors. Politely ask them to see their badge. I mean, there might be a valid reason why they're doing it, right? But challenge them and ask them and say, and then find out before you do it. The exposed papers, confidential documents are easy targets. So if they're not needed anymore, shred them away, and that's a key key requirement that a lot of organizations don't have shredders anymore. So they just tear it and put it in the bin. Tearing a paper once or twice can be easily put back together, right? So if you're not going to lock it away securely, make sure you shred them. Well, the other alternative is burn them, but that's not very environmentally friendly now, right? So shred them. Unknown USB drive. There were so many on the table, so you don't know if anything had critical information. Critical information is one, had malicious software that might get installed, but in this environment, it's more likely critical information because it's already in the office, right? So somebody, let's say working in HR, but have downloaded some important data or sensitive data that others shouldn't be seeing, but someone accidentally takes a USB drive and posts it in their machine, they have access to information they should not be looking at. And the suspicious email, which we couldn't really see, it's basically a type of phishing email. So the takeaway, security isn't about being paranoid, it's about being observant. So small habits can prevent big breaches. just challenging that person. It's not a big deal. It may be awkward, but it's important, right? Having the shredder, it can't be super expensive now. Maybe 10 years ago was a very expensive thing. Locking screens, now you can just do it with one press of a button or just a command things. Password on sticky note, this one. If anybody was still doing this, they deserve to be shot. And then suspicious email, I think we've learned about how to identify elements of it so that we can recognize what would be suspicious. Anybody have any questions on this so far? Right. So just a recap on the learning outcomes that we have targeted at the beginning of the session. So first, identifying social engineering attack methods. So I think we've gone through quite comprehensively on understanding the psychology behind social engineering attacks, understanding the motivation, understanding the methods that are used, so that we can be aware and be alert and being targeted. Bless you. Second, apply best practices to secure mobile devices. So you've got the physical security element of it, and then the digital security element of it. So physical security, you can do things like strong password, facial recognition and all that. Another element of physical security that I didn't touch on earlier was how would you prevent somebody from shoulder surfing on your phone or your laptop? What can you do?
Screen protector, that is
Privacy. Privacy screen.
So you would say it's a good thing, right? Especially to have them on a laptop when you're working out. It's recommendable to have
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
You should have that.
Like when I'm working in a cafe, I like to
Especially if you're working in a
Yeah.
public space, highly recommend.
I like to sit up
Against the
against the
wall,
wall.
yeah.
Yeah.
You don't know who's standing there.
I saw someone using a detachable privacy screen.
Oh.
Whenever that you need to go for certain private
Website,
website, right?
yeah.
Straight away.
Oh, that would be good because the privacy screen. Yeah, the privacy screen actually gives me a headache. I'm not sure why. I tried it out once, and then because at certain angles your eyes have to adjust even when you are looking at your own phone. So I don't know why.
There are different types.
Oh yeah, I need
There are
to look into that because I only tried one time.
Because there's different levels of the protection. I mean, some just makes it a bit blurry for people from outside. Some
okay.
completely dark.
Yes, that's the one I had.
Up and down,
Right, but even for your phone also, there's different grades
Yeah.
of the privacy
Okay.
cover.
So that is a must-have. Like, you should put it in red.
Yeah, I mean, but if you're only using your laptop in your office environment, so then it's not that important. But most people today are working from everywhere, right? So you would need something like that. And thirdly, we spoke about generative AI tools and how to be responsible when using generative AI. Do you guys use much of generative AI today?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you create songs on Suno still? Yeah. Oh wow. Are you a musician
Yeah.
by training as well?
Yeah.
Oh. Have you created any songs and published from Suno?
Numbers of them. I mean, the publish only twice, but the rest I just keep it just for my own.
Published as in on platform?
Yeah. So you can
Oh,
publish,
Suno.
yeah, publicly, so people can like. It's like another social media.
Really?
But can't you? You can also like publish it on Spotify and all that if you
Can.
want to, right?
Very
Yeah.
good. Yes.
Yeah.
What's
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because I have a lot of friends who are working in the creative industry, so I'm more aware about it. But I try not to put in. I don't try not to feed the AI so it doesn't learn.
Right.
Like I make crochet patterns as well. I don't upload because crochet is the one thing that one of the few things that AI cannot replicate.
Yeah, the act of it.
The act of it and even the patterns. Like if you take an AI pattern, it's always going to come out janky.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so tell my friends, don't do anything like that. And even like friends who do art like me, for example, she says don't upload my art.
The art that you create, yeah.
Don't say put my image, don't put your image there and say make my picture similar to that art style. Don't do that because you're training the AI to follow that art style. Yeah. So
The problem is people are aware of it today.
yeah.
But this has been going on for about 7-8 years. Remember last time there used to be a filter on social media, age, show my face when I'm 60 years old. That's all a tool, that's how they've learned all this to build your facial features and all that. But people don't realize, they just think it's a game, unfortunately. But at least now people are a bit more aware. Okay, key takeaways. So I think, remember at the beginning of it, I started with talking about the two principles is to be able to use technology responsibility, follow the compliance requirements, and then use technology safely. Because ultimately, if you follow these two practices, you'll be good. And we went through different ways of doing this, right? Like the compliance requirements, we spoke about how the policies and guidelines, how the enforcement must be consistent, that is quite key. And then the processes that need to be followed for reporting and auditing in terms of when you do the incident reporting and all that. Because there needs to be traceability and accountability. And also understanding why the compliances are there, it's important because just doing one of it is not important, is not sufficient. Or rather, following compliances but not using technology safely compromises you, and following compliances blindly, or using technology very safely but not following compliances will disrupt your work and all that. Sometimes you're trying to be overly secure, but you don't understand that there is some leeway in terms of doing, because there is already compliances and processes and procedures in place to prevent something from happening. So in terms of using technology safely, we talked again about social engineering attacks, we talked about device security physically and digitally. We also spoke about understanding the risk and ethics of using generative AI particularly. It's all for me.